It's not surprising that transitioning into retirement is very difficult. In today's video, I'll show one of the hidden ways retirees struggle as a result of something I'll call the purpose paradox. My name is Daniel McCluskey, founder of McCluskey Financial, and after working with a few dozen clients and helping them in preparing for or navigating retirement, there are some patterns that data supports that just can't be ignored. The reality of retirement can be very different than from what many expect. And a lot of this is due to the very fact that the routines and the busyness of our working life that kept us fulfilled can actually work against us as we enter retirement. One of the largest issues, however, of all is tackling the shift from spending a lot of time with others to spending a lot more time alone. So today we're going to break down the purpose paradox. And when we look at the data together and ultimately discuss what you can do about it, it really shouldn't be much of a paradox or mystery at all. The purpose paradox is a psychological state of mind that keeps accomplished retirees that are looking for meaning in retirement from finding it. After a lifetime of chasing goals, building wealth, maybe even recently reading books or watching videos like this one to prepare for a purposeful retirement, they finally find themselves at a spot they've been working towards, only to find themselves mentally down or drained. They and the world around them give them every reason to busy themselves or to ignore it, but no suggestion seems to fill the void. Now, the best illustration of this problem from a data perspective starts from a study from the US Bureau of Labor Statistics in 2023, headlined "Who Americans Spend Their Time With." As you can see, as people get older and enter into retirement, the time with their partner, family, children, friends, and coworkers all decrease. The outlier there, of course, is the yellow, the time alone. And remember, this is just step one of the problem. We're going to go through each step today, as well as how to identify if you're struggling with this problem, as well as what we've seen real retirees do to solve it. Now, what we also need to realize about the time alone increasing is this is a different type of time alone in our 60s, 70s, and 80s than it was in our 30s, 40s, and 50s. Even though we have about 5 hours in our 40s, for example, up to about 8 hours in our 80s, it's not just 3 more hours of the same type of aloneness. When we were in our 20s through our 40s, for example, we had that time with our kids, our family, our coworkers that gave us a lot of content to ponder or to watch videos on or research, whereas as we get older and we have less time with them and more time alone, there is a compounding effect. So this time alone not only is greater in time, but also is going to leave greater opportunity for deeper thoughts, deeper questions, especially as we near the end of our life, which can be very difficult. So this leads us to our second point. The first is realizing that as we enter retirement, retirees are going to spend much more time alone. The second is that more time alone means more time with your own thoughts. And as we pointed out at the end, this also means more time with deeper thoughts with those tougher questions about life as we enter the later stages of our life. And this is a big deal. According to Aristotle, he says the ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. So if we have trouble in contemplating, according to Aristotle, the value of our life is going to diminish. So that's step two. We spend more time alone. Now that we're spending more time alone, we're going to have more time with these difficult thoughts. So we have two paths that we can go down at this point. The first is we can face reality. That's wrestling with those big questions in solitude, meaning, truth, mortality, and legacy. Or, of course, the opposite is we can avoid reality. We can drown out uncomfortable thoughts with constant distraction, and this is the path that is going to be much more difficult according to Aristotle. The more that we aren't able to have that power of contemplation or awareness, the more our value of life is going to diminish. Now, while choosing the path of avoiding reality should be fairly obvious that this is going to diminish the quality of life, I wanted to look at a quick study here that was done in June of this year in 2025, titled Loneliness and Mental Health Disorders in Older Adults Living in Portugal During the COVID-19 Pandemic, a cross-sectional study to illustrate this point. They, after surveying a number of older adults during this time period, found 52.1% of them experienced nervousness, 45.3% of them experienced sadness or depression, and 41.2% of them encountered sleeping difficulties. Now, certainly it's worth pointing out that we are social animals, and a lot of this is due to the fact that people need to have interaction with other human beings, and when you remove this, of course, these things are going to increase. We can also bet that a lot of this is due to the fact that people have a difficult time with contemplation, especially as they get older. So when the path most traveled is distraction, when we hit that crossroad of facing reality or avoiding reality, this would mean, to come back to this quote for the second time, according to Aristotle, the value of life would diminish. Now, this isn't the paradox. This is just us following a line of reason. Retirees spend more time alone, they're gonna have more time with their thoughts, they have those two paths of facing or avoiding reality, and when they avoid it and choose distraction, they are going to have a lower value of life, according to Aristotle. That is not the paradox. The paradox, it's that even when contemplation or facing reality seems to be chosen, the data doesn't seem to get much better. And I understand that this may offend some, but that's okay, and this is due to a couple of reasons. First is that they often turn to contemporary or New Age philosophies, indifferentism, modernism, or even worse, when they do choose something like Christianity, it's generally done for the wrong reasons. The mental, the physical, the social, the political, and more benefits. Now, I think this one is relatively evident as well, but to look at some actual data here, so I'm not just talking to you on how this problem seems to be in the air and exists, here's a study titled "How Does Religious Belief Affect Happiness of Older Adults? The Participation Effect and the Support Effect." Their conclusion was, first, the study results indicated that religious beliefs were significantly and positively correlated with older adults' happiness, and that religious participation had a moderating role in the participation effect between religious belief and happiness. That's great. That's not the problem. The second part of their conclusion is, therefore, because that is the case, we should pay attention to respect for the faith of religious older adults and to the difference between religious belief and feudal superstition. Again, not a problem in itself. The problem is that this says because this tends to increase happiness, therefore we should pay closer attention to it, and in the case of many retirees, therefore they should try it out. But we shouldn't believe things because they give us benefits. We should believe things because they are true. So the problem is that when we accept the solution simply for those benefits and don't go much deeper, did we actually ever go into that contemplative phase in the first place that Aristotle says is required to increase our value of life? Only the surface is scratched. Real, deep contemplation never takes place. So for the third time, to revisit that same quote, the ultimate value of life depends upon awareness and the power of contemplation rather than upon mere survival. When this does not happen, the value of life, according to Aristotle, decreases. So as people get older, when they enter into a more spiritual state, which does happen often, which is fantastic, when they get more involved in their church community, in their faith, fantastic things. But when it is not truly contemplative, when it doesn't go deep, yes, they still may see results in terms of happiness increasing, but the root, the actual answers to those questions, the life changes that may need to happen for them to be truly at peace, don't occur. Now, you can ultimately see that the purpose paradox is in fact real. Retirees spend more and more time alone in retirement. They distract themselves to try and drain out those thoughts, and even the ones that do try to attempt to increase their contemplation seem to miss the mark because they're doing it for the wrong reasons. Often, understandably, they are a little hesitant to turn back to something that maybe they grew up seeing because it didn't really seem to do the trick. Let me give you an example. Imagine you were a cradle Catholic, you were baptized, you grew up going to church. It was more of a healthy social thing rather than a belief thing. Most of your friends ended up stopped going, so you did too. And now, when you experience these troubling thoughts for purpose in retirement, you assume that the social club you grew up going to, that most people end up quitting anyways, can't possibly provide the answers. And reasonably so. So maybe you're kind of willing to do it halfway to get back into things for the benefits rather than doing it all in. But what if you found through good research and conversation that some of the greatest philosophers, historians, authors, maybe even just some of the best people that you know were devout Catholics and experienced great peace in retirement? Would you then consider the option? Now, I'm Catholic, so it's an easy example for me to give. We see it all the time. But my goal in making these videos and serving my clients ultimately is to bring peace to your finances so you can focus on what matters most. With that said, if you'd like to learn more about how we support our clients in helping them take control of their retirements, visit us in the link in the description down below. It's www.mccluskeyfinancial.com. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this video on the purpose paradox, watch this video on screen now on why there is a high likelihood that you actually need far less than $1 million to retire, because for all you know, you may be able to walk out of work tomorrow.